Welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop, and today we're going to be making a new chicken perch. Roll the intro. So this was a very quick sort of in one day project because the current perch that's in the chicken coop is literally just falling apart. It was something I made a long time ago. So I started off by finding 4 pieces of wood that was relatively straight, which was quite difficult because they all had sort of bend and bows in them. This is the wood that I recycled from my first chicken coop. If you've seen my chicken coop series, you'll have seen that I recycled this wood from it. So having selected 4 pieces that were, roughly the right length, I then took them over to the miter saw. I set a stop, as you can see there, at 60 centimetres. That was the height that I wanted to have the sort of rear legs. Sorry, not 60, it was 90 centimetres, I think. That was the height that I wanted the rear legs. So I got all of the pieces cleaned up, the length of pieces that I wanted, and then I reset the miter saw to get the length of the sort of noggins or the joining parts of the leg. I ran them all through the saw, then went back and sort of dry fitted everything to see what it would look like. I should point out, I had an idea in my mind of what I wanted this to look like. I hadn't measured anything, hadn't even done a sketch really, but I had an idea. I wanted a sort of staircase, stepping staircase for the chicks to have sort of 2 levels. So having had that idea in my mind, I sort of went about creating the outer legs. I also knew that I wanted to drive the rear legs of the perch into the ground so that it kept it a bit more stable. I didn't want it resting because that was part of the problem with the current one. It had like a big flat foot on it and that rocked and swayed in the wind. So I wanted something that I could drive into the ground a bit more. So I just cut some very, very rudimentary sort of points in the end. That's what you can see me doing there. Once I'd set up the stop block, it was really, really easy to just get all of these to be exactly the same size. So when I'd got all 4 exactly the right angle, and again using the stop block on my saw, it enabled me to get them all exactly the right size. Now that I had a dry fit and I was happy with how everything was, I could move to that very important part of every garage workshop video, which of course is the pocket holes, which you will see in a minute. So I just got them all lined up. I made sure I got roughly all of the sections where I wanted them in the middle, marked off on both sides, just so I knew that when I screwed it together, I had everything in exactly the right place. Obviously this hasn't got to be perfect, but it has to be good enough that it's straight and flat and level. So here, of course, being a garage workshop video, here are the pocket holes. There's quite a few pocket holes in this video. So for those of you that enjoy pocket holes, sit back, relax, and enjoy a couple of minutes of me making pocket holes. So when the pocket holes were finished, I just began to construct the 2 sort of back stands. And as you can see here, I'm using the plastic right-angled square just clamped on to make sure that I'm getting the right-handed angle. They're really useful, these. I think I've probably mentioned this loads of times, but I designed them and made them myself on the laser printer that I've got, the 3D printer that I've got access to. And it just kept them in the right place, just kept them at the right angle. I mean, this isn't a perfect fit, as I said, but it was pretty good and everything was flat and level when I was finished. So the next thing I did when I'd laid them out and made sure they were exactly the same is I just clamped the 2 pieces together so I could drive a hole through both, which is where the broom handle, which was going to serve as the actual perch, was going to go. I've seen this on a YouTube video, I can't remember who it was, but it's a really clever, simple idea. So I popped on a force in a bit. I think this was something like a 16mm bit, I think, perhaps. And I put the two together, drilled all the way through the first one, and then just made a mark onto the second one so I knew it was exactly straight. Popped a piece of wood underneath it, because obviously I didn't want it going through my work surface. And then I did the hole all the way through. Once I was happy that it had gone all the way through, I just put them together with it, just slid the pole in to have a sort of test fit to make sure it was going to be right. And it was fab. I was very happy with that. So then I moved outside and moved on to working on the bits that were going to effectively be the sort of front legs. Some of them was a little bit dodgy. You can sort of see that there. And again, I had a plan in my mind of what I wanted it to look like, but I didn't really have a plan of how I was going to do this. So I just sort of played it by ear, really. When I cut the bits to the right size, I then offered them up back out, and I realised that I was going to need some sort of struts or cross braces. So I set up another stop on my miter saw, which you can see me doing there, and I just tipped off the edges to make sure they were exactly the same size, as you can see there, just to shave that bit off that side. And these would sort of provide the struts, the reinforcement struts across the top. So when I did that, it was time to move on to the second leg. So as you can see, like the other set, they were really identical. I was really pleased with how they had turned out. They were exactly the same length, exactly how I had imagined them being in my mind, which was good. So you can see there, almost identical, along with the other two bits. So I had most of it constructed now. So the next thing to do was to lay them out and join them together. So for this, I just literally cut a couple of pilot holes and stuck a massive, great big wood screw between the two. It's a bit tricky trying to drill that and then screw it in, because obviously the clearance from my drill. But once I'd put those three screws through, it gave it a lot of rigidity, and I was really happy with them being level now. So I just repeated that for the other side. So with those bits joined together, it was back to the Forstner drill bit and exactly the same process that you've just seen me do for the sort of top section of the leg. So I just drove through exactly the same, slightly different size Forstner bit this one, because the broom handle that I used on the bottom section is just a bit thinner, not much, probably 4 or 5 mil, but it's just that little bit thinner. So the hole that I drilled was just a tiny little bit less. It was at this point, though, that I thought about the actual structure and how strong it was. I'm not 100% sure that it's greatly strong, but it should be good enough. More pocket holes this time. This is for the sort of brace, the supports that are going across the back. I went for the 2 much thicker pieces of timber, wider. This is just CLS stud timber. And then 1 crossbar that is the cross member, as it were, that is the same width as the wood that I've used on it. So then I just flipped it on its side, and in a sec you'll see the bit I mean about the strength. When I'd connected it, I'd managed to get the 3 screws in, not a problem. That's the other wider piece of studwork timber you can see there. And then the final brace was the thinner piece which just went in at the back, which you can see from the camera is almost dead straight. It was at this point here where you can see me pick it up that bit in the centre bowed, which worried me because it was very well connected. It was very well joined. So that's my face that you can see there. Have a little scratch, look at the camera. I thought, what am I going to do now? So then I just decided to do a sort of cheap and dirty sort of self-made pocket hole. So I just drilled a couple of holes in on an angle and just ran some screws in just to give it a little bit of rigidity. And when I did that, it was a lot better. It felt a lot stronger. So this is one of those occasions where you think about something in your head and think, oh, I'll do that, and that'll work and it'll be fine. And it wasn't. And obviously making projects like this, which are quite big and cumbersome on your own, can be quite challenging sometimes. So I decided the best thing to do was lay it on the floor, but I haven't got the world's flattest patio. So I attached it to the pole of the washing line, made sure it was nice and level, and then I went for fixing it on the side. I had this clever idea of putting some clamps in to hold the piece of wood, which did work after dropping my spirit level about 5 times, but at least I got those screws in from the top brace first. Once that top brace was in, despite me dropping the spirit level a few more times, once that top brace was in, it was a lot easier to pull it all together. I went for the thinner brace next before I finally finished on the front brace. Now, believe it or not, all of these braces are completely perfectly level. I think now you can really see the shape of what the Perch looks like. So when I was happy with that, I laid it down, got it stood up, and then I just fed through the 2 broom handles, which are actually going to be make the Perch. Really simple, just cut them out on the miter saw. I then drilled some pilot holes and drilled it through the actual broom handle wood so it didn't split. Did the top one and did the bottom one, and when it went through, really pleased. You can see it rocking side to side. Don't forget it's got those angle bits on the back. It was at this point that I noticed my major disaster. Of course, I'd created the Perch completely ignoring the fact I had to get the Perch into the coop. And as you can see, it doesn't fit. Now, no matter how many times I tried it, different angles up and down, you'll see in a minute, I could not get it to fit, which left me with only one option. I had to take the thing apart and fit it in. Only a minor issue, luckily, because I had made the Perch in a way where it could be disassembled, not thinking for this reason, but just the 3 screws that were down the side that held the sort of front pair of legs to the back pair of legs, I just needed to pop those 3 screws out, and then it came apart nice and easy, which I was actually quite pleased about, because it does mean if I ever want to take it out or properly clean it or anything like that, I've now got the opportunity to do that. So I popped it back in the coop, reconstructed it and re-screwed it together, and by the time I'd done that, it looked absolutely fine. The last thing I did, and I'm not sure what this drill bit's called, it's something like a disturber. I brought it in Lidl. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a big, solid, chunky drill bit with like a scoop on the bottom, and it basically just destroys all the ground. So I used it to dig a hole to get the legs in, and I sank them in, as you can see. So this is the finished perch. I'm pleased to say the chickens absolutely loved it. Within about 5 minutes, they were up on it, using both of the different stages, and there's lots of spaces in and under around it that they can get into as well. So for a one-day build, I was really pleased with how it turned out. It fitted the purpose. It's much better than the one that was in there, and it's much more stable. So that's the end of this week's video. Thank you very much for watching. Can I just remind you, if you haven't already subscribed, please do. I've got loads of great projects coming up in the future, and I've also got some great videos in my channel already. If you haven't had a chance, check them out. If chickens are your thing, there's a great chicken coop build. If you're after tool reviews, there's some of those as well. Hopefully I've got something for all of you. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Happy woodworking.